You know, for decades now, almost a half century in fact, conservatives have been complaining about bias in the media. How much bias? Well, a 2013 survey showed that the number of journalists identifying as Republican was a whopping 7%. And about a year ago, they specifically polled White House correspondents. Now, this is the super elite pool. The 49 seats go to those with years of experience, extensive contacts, and of course, top pay. In April of 2016, the number of White House correspondents who identified as Republican was 0%. So you're trying to tell me that there's no fake news trying to destroy Trump's legitimacy and undermining our democracy? I say bull. Hey, pardon the vulgarity, it's not my term, it's CNN's, because that's what CNN producer John Bonifield called the Trump-Russia narrative that CNN has been promoting ever since they cried on camera the night that Donald Trump reminded them that the racists and savages in flyover country had had enough of their, bullshit. Now, actual journalist James O'Keefe and his Project Veritas caught Bonifield on hidden camera saying that the story about Trump's Russia connection is mostly bullshit, and that there is, in fact, an institutional witch hunt, that's the CNN producer's term, not mine, a witch hunt to destroy the president. CNN stands by our medical producer John Bonifield, a CNN spokesman said the next day in an email statement. Now, for CNN, standing by a producer means to insist that as a medical producer, he can't be expected to know what goes on in the political division, the poor dear. Bless his little heart. The CNN statement went on to say that diversity of personal opinion is what makes CNN strong. We welcome it and we embrace it. CNN. James O'Keefe got started with his 2009 expose of Acorn, and while O'Keefe and partner Hannah Giles did the hidden camera work, the rollout of those videos was executed by my late friend Andrew Breitbart. Andrew understood the media information complex better than anyone I ever knew, so here's what a Breitbart reveal looks like. Number 1, make the accusation. Number 2, wait for the denial. 3, provide the video evidence destroying their denial. Then wait for the special pleading. Now, in the CNN story, the special pleading is that, well, he's a medical producer, he's not a political producer, so his personal bias has no impact, and therefore we're not biased as an organization. 5, release a second video to destroy the special pleading argument. Now, today, as I write this, O'Keefe's released a second video of CNN's on-air political commentator and resident self-avowed Maoist communism fan, Van Jones, who describes the CNN effort to connect Trump with the Russians as a nothing burger.
The Russian thing is just a big nothing burger.
This is not coming from a medical producer. He's a top CNN analyst, and he says they all know it's a nothing burger. Now, if I were trying to prove a case of libel against CNN on behalf of the American people, I would have to accomplish 3 things. First, I'd have to show intent. I'd have to prove that not only was their coverage of President Trump false, I'd have to prove that they knew it was false when they ran it. Second, I'd have to prove malice, that they committed the falsehood in order to harm the president and his tens of millions of supporters. And finally, I'd have to prove harm. The libelous statements, known to be untrue when CNN made them, had to be driven by malice, but also had to actually harm the victim in a measurable way. Now, back in 2004, Evan Thomas, the assistant managing editor of Newsweek magazine, openly stated that in the 2004 election, press bias would be worth about 15 points at the polls. And that 15 points of bias was for John Kerry, not for the Messiah Obama or Madam President, which has, of course, been far more pronounced in terms of bias. Now, here's the final 2016 election map. If we take away 15 points of media bias, take it away from Hillary Clinton, then the 2016 election map goes from this to this. In other words, this is what the country would look like if the press bias were to disappear and the American people got not conservative news, but simply unspun actual information rather than the tongue baths given to Democrats and the out-and-out lies told about Republicans. Here's the 2012 results. And then minus 15 points of media bias. And here we are again in 2008. Here's 2008 without those 15 points of bias. Do you feel harmed by this? I feel harmed by it. In order for people to govern themselves, those same people must have information upon which to base their votes. If that information is poisoned, then so is the voting, and therefore so is the country. So really, when you get right down to it, mainstream media's toxic politicizing of news is in fact the ultimate form of voter fraud. We need your help to keep these messages coming. If you want to help us make a difference, please go to billwhittle.com and become a member.